So, if you were thinking about going to like one of these nice destinations on the screen right now, or in my case, just trying to plan a trip home to visit family and friends, it's going to get a lot more expensive now because the airlines are starting to put on their fuel surcharges. And no matter where you're flying to, it's going to affect you. And it's even worse in Asia. And I have a video that's going to explain why. Sucks for me because I haven't booked my flights yet. But hey, what can you do? But it doesn't look like these prices are going to go down anytime soon, especially with the orange idiot continuing to run his mouth. So in this video, I'm going to go over what to expect if you do have a planned trip coming up, because every region is a little bit different. Because here in Asia, most of the oil does come from the Strait of Hormuz. But for those back home flying with WestJet, just be prepared. Let's get into it.
Let's now invite managing partner at the travel group, Mackenzie McMillan. Mackenzie, good evening and thank you for your time.
Thanks for having me.
Now, these adjustments were a matter of time, it seems. Looking at the surge of fuel and gas prices in Canada, what's your assessment of the current situation?
Yeah, so I mean, this is just another one of the things that we have to be concerned about as travelers and consumers moving forward. We've seen many different pieces of travel upheaval over the last few months specifically, but what we're looking at right now with the fuel surcharges is it's going to mostly directly and immediately affect people who are booking, like you had mentioned, companion fares with WestJet, points bookings with other airlines as well. That's where we're probably going to see the most direct impact. For the general public who are traveling on full fare tickets, there's been a fuel surcharge for many, many years, and we may see that fuel surcharge increase, but the increments that we're looking at probably not going to be something you're going to really notice on a ticket too extreme at this point.
The key word is at this point right now, because let me remind everybody with the screenshot that I showed earlier. In Asia, it's a completely different story. But I understand what this guy's saying. I mean, for the time being, if you are flying locally within Canada, the jump in cost might not be as extreme as the rest of the world right now. But if you're planning to travel farther, like in the example in the last video I'm going to show, they give an example of traveling from Sydney to London, where a ticket was usually about $1,300. Now it's anywhere from $2,000 to up to $3,000. So depending on where you're traveling, I wouldn't take this too nonchalantly.
But I think our bigger concern right now is that if this situation does escalate and get worse, that we could be looking at more future flight cancellations as airlines reduce service to cut their fuel costs.
You know, this adjustment where companion voucher or WestJet is concerned, do you believe something similar could happen with other airlines in the country now?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Especially on what we would consider to be non-revenue tickets. So things like companion fares, Aeroplan tickets, United Mileage Plan, any of the airlines points program or credit card benefit tickets where the airline's not actually making any type of profit on the ticket. That's probably where we're going to see the most direct increase in, supplementary fuel surcharges.
Well, shit, that was what I was planning to use to book my trip home. Credit card points. But if I'm feeling this frustration, I'm sure thousands of other Canadians are as well. Okay, I need to stop saying just Canadians, because the GTL community is global now.
Moving forward. On regular tickets, there's already a fuel surcharge. Sometimes it can be up to half of what your ticket costs. So if we do see increases there, $60 to $100 or even a little bit more, it probably won't be too much of an extreme for the paying public, but definitely on these benefit tickets or points tickets, that's where we're going to see a big change.
So, Mackenzie, what will your advice be to travelers who are now looking to travel, especially in the months of April and May, where we could see, more surcharge or adjustments of fewer flights?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say if you are planning to travel, definitely book your ticket sooner than later, because once you've booked your ticket, you are locked in with that price. They can't add additional costs on to your ticket after the fact. But the bigger thing that I think people should be considering is making sure that you have adequate cancellation and trip interruption travel insurance, because if we do start seeing a situation where flights are being canceled, you have to remember that most people, when they're traveling on vacation, the flight is only one part of their trip. They might be taking a flight to get to a cruise, and if your flight's canceled, the cruise line is not responsible to give you your money back if you miss the cruise.
This is actually a really good point, because everybody's vacation is going to be different. Some might be going on a cruise, as you said, but then others might be booking tours or hotel packages. And these hotels, cruises, and tour packages, they're not going to care that you can't make it to the destination. You've already prepaid and they're going to keep your money. So definitely look into your credit card and travel insurance to see what's covered. It seriously sucks that we have to think about this stuff now, but we all know who to blame on this.
or misconnecting to the cruise. And the same thing goes for non-refundable hotel bookings as well, or other tour products. So it's definitely good to make sure that you are protecting your investment by purchasing the proper type of travel insurance.
Are there concerns, though, Mackenzie, about what could the situation look like looking at the travel season ahead in the summer?
Yeah, so one of our biggest concerns is that you mentioned in the story before that WestJet is reaccommodating people on canceled flights, and the airlines will do everything they can to reaccommodate those passengers. But when we get into the heavy travel in the summer, we're going to be looking at flights where all the other flights that are going are sold out. So where do you put those passengers? So we saw this with Mexico about a month ago, those 2 days of flight cancellations to Puerto Vallarta, and we had travelers stranded for 5 or 6 days because every other flight was sold out. So that's just another reason why it's very important to make sure that you are insuring your travel purchases.
So travel insurance, credit card insurance, and cancellation policies are going to be a regular thing that we're going to need to check up on now. It's kind of funny though, I used to complain about airline prices being too high before. Now I actually want those prices back. Now this next report, I want to kind of zoom out a little bit and take a look at the global jet fuel crisis that's actually happening. But before I move on to that report, I would like to give a quick shout out to Heather, who took this photo from Per Se, Quebec. I hope I pronounced that right. But she was able to capture an amazing sunrise in this photo. So I really appreciate you emailing this to me and allowing me to share it with the community. Okay, let's zoom out a little bit and see what's happening around the world when it comes to the global jet fuel crisis.
The global aviation industry is confronting a jet fuel crisis due to rising costs triggered by the ongoing Middle East conflict, with some forced to raise air ticket prices to cushion the impact. Leading Chinese carriers, including Air China and China Southern Airlines, have announced that fuel surcharges for domestic routes will be raised in April 2026. Chinese carriers have stated that the routes of 800 kilometres or less, the fuel surcharge will be set at 12 Australian dollars. While the routes exceeding 800 kilometres, the fuel surcharge will increase to 25 Australian dollars per flight. Air New Zealand has raised all fares and suspended its full-year profit guidance just weeks after issuing it, as the escalation of the conflict in the Middle East drives unprecedented volatility in global energy markets.
So different airlines and different countries are actually handling the increase at a different rate. Oh no, she's back. Sorry, I got a little bit distracted. But what I was trying to say is that depending on what country you're going to and depending on what airline you're flying, one airline might not have as much of a surcharge as the other. But this could rapidly change, because I'm going to show an airline that is actually making more drastic measures. I'll show that in the next report, but let's finish off this one first.
China's Hong Kong-based carrier, Cathay Pacific, has increased surcharges by 34%, while American Airlines expects an additional $580 million in costs for the first quarter. United Airlines, a major carrier in the US, is trimming unprofitable routes through to 2027. Even Scandinavian Airlines plan to cancel 1,000 flights in April 2026. And Japan Airlines and all Nippon Airlines are expected to raise fuel surcharges sharply on international flights from June 2026.
Yep, sucks for me. ANA and Cathay Pacific were the two airlines I was looking at. Now I'm going to cut this report short because they continue to talk about the oil crisis, more specifically the Strait of Hormuz. But I want to focus more on the airline stuff in this video. And this next report comes out of Asia, which will give everybody an idea back home what's actually happening around the world.
Now, before the war, an economy class ticket on Cathay Pacific from Sydney to London would cost you $1,370, but now it costs you more than $2,000 thanks to another jet fuel surcharge, and on some days, it's over $3,500. Before the U.S.-Israeli war with Iran started, the global airline industry had forecast record profits of $41 billion for 2026. But with the price of jet fuel more than doubling, carriers are under pressure and they're scrambling to cope. Carriers ranging from Air New Zealand to Vietnam Airlines have started cutting flights. Korean Air is shifting to emergency management mode to deal with the supply crunch. And the president of the Philippines has said grounding planes is a, quote, distinct possibility.
So if any of these airlines were on your list to book this year, you might want to book it pretty soon. And I know I should be listening to my own advice, but I do have to consider my work schedule before I book my flight. But that Cathay Pacific example that she gave earlier from London to Sydney at a regular price of about $1,300 all the way up to $2,000. That's just one destination from London to Sydney. So flights out of the UK going anywhere else are probably going to have similar increases as well.
To secure its own supply, China has banned exports of jet fuel. China's airlines are also finding opportunity during the crisis. adding thousands of flights to Europe thanks to China's ability to save fuel by bypassing the Middle East and accessing Russian airspace. Nevertheless, China's carriers remain exposed to the Iran energy shock. Local carrier Colorful Guizhou Airlines has disclosed a plan to hike fuel surcharges by 5 times for domestic routes starting April the 5th. And Air China, China Eastern, and China Southern Airlines are all reporting cautious outlooks for the year. According to HSBC, fuel made up 35 to 38% of the operating expenses for all 3 airlines in the first half of the year. Why is Asia so vulnerable? Well, Iran has effectively closed the Strait of Hormuz, and the region relies more heavily on oil and gas that transit the strait than any other parts of the world. So while Iran maintains its iron grip on the strait, expect higher fuel costs around the world, from Asia to the United States, and expect airlines to pass that cost on to you, the consumer.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Orange Guy. Thanks for stirring up the global aviation industry. And a special thanks goes out to these idiots here, because every single one of these people here are the reason that the Orange Guy's in the office. The entire globe is now involved and caught up in this mess that they caused. And countries who may have nothing to do with the United States or be involved in anything are now feeling the pain. So all the anger that's headed towards the United States right now, I think it's justified, but that's just my opinion. So I guess the only thing I need to say in closing is that if you're going to be booking a trip or planning a vacation anywhere, you definitely want to book it pretty soon. If you found any value or agree with anything I said, or you want to hear more from a Canadian and international point of view without the US media bias, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button below. That way you're notified of my future videos. And if you want to see more of my videos, check out the ones that'll show up on your screen shortly. Thanks everyone. I'll catch you in the next one.